Okay, well, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this lesson we're going to be painting a loose bird. It's going to be a blue bird, and we're going to use some palette knife and paintbrush, and I'm using water mixable oil paint, so stick around and watch and learn step by step how to paint a loose bird. Okay, so to start off with, I just used a little bit of black and some transparent oxide red just to sketch in the little bird, because I just didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time on the sketching. I want to get into it and then get on with the palette knife and all the rest. So first of all, I want to just block in using some of that transparent oxide, red oxide, because it's a great undertone for all these kind of rusty red, orangey brown colors that are going to go on this bird. So I'm just going to kind of block in on the bird where I see it. Oh, I even have this color. It's kind of a reddy brown, and this is called transparent, I think it was transparent brown ochre or something interesting like that. I forget the name of it now, but it's kind of a nice color. But you can just stick with the transparent red oxide, and I'll put a link for that in the description. So now I'm just gonna go and block in some of the blue. We're gonna keep it real simple. Our main goal is to sort of create this base for when we go and add our palette knife, our thicker paint. So for the blue, I'm going to start off with some cerulean blue, because it's a nice bright blue for the bluebird. I also use a little cobalt blue here just to get just a variety, and also just a little bit of a darker blue in there for sort of where I'm going to see a darker shadow. And then I'll put in some of that blue here. And this is just, keeping it real simple, just blocking in. And then for the grayish white, just going to wipe my brush, and I'll take a bit of that red, even just some, you just need like a red and a green. In this case, I'm just using these natural, this is like a phthalo green I have, so I'm just being really cautious how much I use, because that color is really strong. So just get a little bit of some gray, a warm grayish green color like that. If it's too cold, just get a little bit of this, got some of this raw umber I'll put in there. Just keep blocking in. Just don't overthink it at this point. Okay, so now that I've kind of blocked in, I can start going for a little bit more detail. So I can go and get this smaller brush. This is from Michael's, just an artist loft. It says number 4 round. So just kind of handy sometimes for things like the eye, painting in the eye. Kind of bringing the eye a bit further back here. I think his little head is kind of turned a bit, so I'm just gonna shape it a little bit. And then you can start to look at the angles a little more, like this angle here kind of connects a little bit more to the head like this. You just start to see what's going on a little bit more as you get into it. I'm just using the paint that's there to sort of combine some of those lines. Okay. Just gonna pull this color back a little, so I'll use my scraper tool here and sort of scrape some of that paint off. Just it has a little rubber tip, and so I can use it to sort of scrape some of that paint off. Or you can use your trusty palette knife. All right, so now that you've kind of got everything laid out, you can begin. I'll use this smaller palette knife, and I'll get a little bit of can start by adding a little bit of light to the bluebird's chest. I kind of thought robin for a sec because I use the same colors on the robin. So just kind of looking at the reference and just putting in some of those lighter marks there. So you'll notice I'm not mixing up the lightest light yet. I've just got sort of a nice mid-tone for the birds, that sort of orangey, rusty color. And then I can go and do the same with the little bluebird's head. I'll just add a little bit of the blue with some white. And I'll go and add a little bit of, there's sort of some light kind of coming down on here, like on the top of the wingtip. Maybe not that light. You kind of have to test it out. Maybe get some cobalt in there. And I'll kind of apply the paint like I'm making little feather marks. And that's what's kind of magical about using the palette knife, is you just kind of have to go with what, you don't have the exact control like you do with a brush, so you're going to get more interesting painting. And I just did another painting on the channel of the blue tit. It's like a European kind of a bright yellow and blue. It's just, the colors are amazing, so you can go check that video out too if you like painting birds. And I'm just sort of now adding some more blue and putting it in now where the shadows are, sort of going back in there. And I'll go get some of that red oxide and just sort of kind of reconstruct the neck. It got a little bit too, I don't know. Just gonna blend that a bit. Okay, and now I'm gonna go back to my little brush and kind of work on some of the details. Getting that little bit of white there, the back of the eye, and I like to get, really kind of show that little eyelid. And you'll notice it looks like I messed it up, but you just gotta go get some black again and then kind of reshape the eye. And like the other bird painting, I'm using this gesso board that I've kind of pre-painted using some pyrrole red and like a light pink color, but you really don't, you could just use the pyrrole red. I was playing around with colors and it didn't do much to add the pink to it. And I'm just giving a little bit of a highlight to the eye. I know you're not supposed to get into the details right away, but what can I say? I kind of jumped the gun. I like to see the little look in the eye there. It's kind of cute. Okay, now I'll do the same. I'll get some of that white, mix it in with that warm, the same paint I used for the underbelly, and add a little more white into it, and I can add a little, I've got some blue there, and I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of get some of that in there. Now I'm going to go back to my palette knife to kind of, I'll start adding some details. Like I think I'll just go and add some of that lighter white on the underbelly here, just with some palette knife, just to get it really going. And then there's some little kind of grayish feathers that are kind of coming up here off the body. And I'm going to add a little more orange to that mixture and sort of add some brighter feathers in here. And I'll add some white to that same mix to get some real, as the light is sort of coming around the shoulder, it gets a little bit cooler, so add a little white in there. Some of that transparent brown. And you sort of add a little bit here and there where it gets kind of lighter. Once you get going with the palette knife, it kind of starts to take its own, the painting just kind of starts to happen. You can't really control too much, but you get to start to sculpt some of that paint together, some of the darker paint with the lighter paint, and it becomes almost like you're moving icing around. It's so thick, but you're also getting to make marks and make connection with the paint that you wouldn't with your regular tools. I find my paintings to be, the bird paintings especially, more interesting with all the thick paint, and the mark making is more exciting to me than getting the bird exactly right. I'd rather see some really kind of neat dynamic marks and colors. Okay, so now the bird by itself, it needs a color and a background to sort of pop the whole thing up off the page. And so with spring coming, I have been putting some blossoms and some leaves. So you could do that. Just put another little branch going down here, and we could put some blossoms in there. I'll first block in a little bit with that Winsor Newton permanent rose, and I'll just put in a few kind of blossom shapes. Doesn't have to be a lot, you can just have a few marks, and I like to keep them really abstract. It's just more like pops of color. And so I will kind of get some of that. I've got this other cool pink. It's just called Cobra, and it's just called Rose. So I'll put a little bit of that on this one. Mix a little white in there. So gonna keep those really loose like that. I'll put a few little marks of some, I'll get some of the green in there and mix some of that pink in to lighten it up. Just kind of mix it a bit so that it's not so bright. And then we'll leave that for now, and I'm going to mix up something for the background. And I think I'll do sort of a combo. I could use a bit of this orange and maybe some this lemon yellow just to really do something a little bit different to contrast with the whole, with the colors that are in the painting. So I think a real pale kind of yellow might look good with the blue. I always put out a bunch of white, and then by the end of it I go, okay, I didn't put out enough white. You go through a lot of it when you're doing backgrounds with palette knife. Okay, so I wasn't big on this colorway, so I'm gonna just kind of now soften it a little bit by adding more white and kind of calming some of the color a bit that's in there. I like it, and I just have to sort of calibrate it a little. So I'm going to add a little white to some of the mixtures. So I had a little bit of this orangey mixture, and then I had more of the yellow. I'm just going to kind of cool them down a little and kind of recalibrate the whole thing. Okay, now I think I'm going to add a little bit of some more detail work here. Add a little bit more blue, and then I'm going to smudge some of these lines out into the background just to loosen the bird and kind of connect the bird with that background. So they don't look like they're separate from each other so much. They kind of looked too kind of separate. So yeah, a little more radiant kind of light on the bird, sort of more some bright pops of that light orange. Trying to loosen that chunky blossom there. It looked too much like one giant flower dominating the bird, so I'm just kind of loosening up that one a little. And I'm going to put a bit of that pink into the background just 'cause why not? Okay, now I'm going to take a break from that, and I'm going to just kind of, I want to get the branch and the feet kind of more settled in. It's just the one part that's driving me a little crazy right now because it's so stiff. So I'm gonna, gotta loosen this up, and also here's an example of how it takes away the softness that this line is so dark next to the yellow. So I'm gonna get something like this raw sienna or something like that, and we can just kind of put in something that's a little bit more like a lighter twig color. Get some of that brown. Just sort of go over that a little. Just getting too intense there, so. Doesn't need to be so strong a line. In the beginning, you want to know where it goes, so you want to know where your bird's going, but the end of the day, you don't want it drawing your eye away from the bird and away from everything else. You can always go back and put in some of that, you know, that transparent red oxide or whatever you have, burnt sienna. Just kind of go in and add a little shadow here and there. And I want to soften some of this edge here. And so now you can take your palette knife or whatever you want. You can see how you can kind of scratch away some of the paint and you'll get that bright red underpaint. It's a little hard for me to do, but without smudging under the camera here. But just take your palette knife and you can scratch some marks. And that bright red comes through, and of course it's all personal preference. I think it's just kind of fun. To add something a little different. You can even kind of scratch in a branch or two. It's just sort of one of those things you gotta play around with. Some of your marks you'll keep. Some of them you'll say, oh, it looked better without that messy mark. But I'm going to soften, for example, I'm going to soften this edge down here. Just dragging some feathers into that. Ooh, that really knocked out some color. Just kind of have fun with it, and you know, play with the paint. You know, that's the main thing. Have fun, and see where it goes. Just kind of playing around with mixing color and, you know, kind of seeing what you can do, how far you can go before you make a big mess. So I'm just going to add a little lighter green here, and I want to add just a variety. I don't like leaving my greens just plain. I like to have a variety of green. And it kind of messes those marks up a little so your eye isn't drawn to them completely. Earlier I must have got some blue in that paint. That's kind of going to drive me crazy. I don't mind colors mixing, but I don't like blue and yellow mixing. It's like creating green accidentally on my canvas is not my thing when it's supposed to be yellow. Okay, before I mess around too much, we're just going to finish up. I just got to lighten that. I'll put a little highlight on the beak, just a tiny one. Just so it's not plain, straight black. There. Okay, so, and then, oh, I almost see one more thing I want to deal with is I don't like the feet being pure black right now. I'm just going to get some of that red oxide and just try to make something that looks a little bit different than the pure black on this one. Sometimes I don't mind, but again, I don't want, I can even use some blue, cobalt and white, put a little blue on there. There, the blue kind of works. Okay. Alrighty, I think we're done. I don't want to mess around with it anymore. So you got to learn how to paint a loose bird today, and I hope you really enjoy this. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and share it with a friend. For more like this, I also have a Patreon channel that you can sign up for, and I'll put the link in the description. Well, thank you everyone, and happy painting.